the title or the topic is Useful Punctuation and the Grammar Tips. It is in the book 4.3, Useful Punctuation and the Grammar Tips, Unit 4, Lesson 3. It's a grammar session and it is dealing with how to use punctuation like parentheses, colons, and the quantifiers in our writing. The learning institutions for today to identify suitable information to be in parentheses and to use colons appropriately and to practice using quantifiers with countable and uncountable nouns. Let's get started. The word parentheses, it means the brackets, the dashes, and the commas. All of these punctuations or advanced punctuations are used to enhance the sentence. So instead of having a simple sentence, a short sentence, you will use those parentheses in order to enhance the sentence and make it more complicated. So you will have complex sentence, you will have long sentence, you will have modified and enhanced sentence. So what are brackets? Brackets are punctuation marks that are used to add extra information or explanations to a sentence without changing the meaning. So the whole purpose is to add extra information, to add explanation. I have, as I said, three types of parentheses, the brackets and the dashes and the commas. Round brackets and square brackets, they are in the same category. Usually, the round brackets are wider and broader than the square brackets. So you will put the square brackets inside the round brackets if you have, for example, something bigger than something. But for the time being, think of the brackets, the dashes, and the commas. And remember, please, parentheses, they are double all the time. Okay? Brackets, dashes, commas. They are two. They are pair. When do we use brackets? We have three uses for brackets: to add extra information, to add additional information. Example, Mount Elbrus in Russia at 5,643.42 meters is the highest mountain in Europe. The idea is to add additional or extra information. That means if you will delete this phrase and you will read Mount Elbrus in Russia is the highest mountain in Europe, it is correct and true. The meaning is fine and grammatically we are okay. But I need to add extra information. I need to add additional information so I will understand how Mount Elbrus in Russia is the highest. So I will say Mount Elbrus in Russia, extra information, the highest is 5,642 meters. And then I will complete the highest or is the highest mountain in Europe. Remember that I included a two commas. Okay, that's the parenthesis. Okay, how do you use or how do we use brackets or how do we use parentheses, let's say. Number two, to add an explanation. Cairo is near to the Nile Delta. What is Cairo? I will open two brackets and I will say the capital city of Egypt. If you will delete this phrase, the capital city of Egypt, and you will say Cairo is near to Nile Delta or to the Nile Delta, it is correct, true, grammatically and logically. But I need to add extra information or add an explanation to see or to have broader or wider understanding. So I would say Cairo, open two brackets, the capital city of Egypt, and then continue, is near to the Nile Delta. And the last one is to include an aside or afterthought or an opinion. That's personal, that's mine. Example, I watched the match before going to bed. Okay, which match? Give me something significant about the match, something related to me. I would say I watched the match, which was brilliant, before going to bed. I added an afterthought, an aside opinion, and that's me, related to me. So that's how we use parentheses, like brackets, like two commas, and like two dashes. Remember, the three ones have the same purposes. Formality and informality plays a role here. If you have, for example, formal language, it is okay to use the two brackets. If you have informal language, it is okay to use the two dashes. If you have semi-formal, it is okay to use two commas. It is not a rule, okay, but this is how writers used to be. And kindly, whenever you are writing, try not to repeat the same parenthesis every time. Use it once in order to avoid ambiguity and to make the text suitable, okay, and let's say applicable for audience. So do not repeat, please, the two brackets or the two commas or the two dashes more than one time, okay, in the paragraph. So you can remove the words inside the brackets and the sentence should still make sense, as we said, because it is extra information. Anything extra can be deleted or omitted, and the meaning will stay the same. And don't overuse brackets, as I said, as too much extra information can make your writing confusing. You are using it to explain once. Don't make your writing wordy. Brackets, okay, with brackets or with those parentheses. Yes. So choose the best phrase to go inside the parentheses in these sentences. Ancient Chinese invented paper during the Han Dynasty. Okay, I will take this, the 2nd century, and I will put it here. And then I will read, the ancient Chinese invented paper during the Han Dynasty, and then I will put what? Between two brackets, the 2nd century BCE. I added extra information to say when Han Dynasty was. Number 2, Istanbul. What is Istanbul? Previously called Constantinople. And then I will continue. Is in Turkey. If you will say Istanbul is in Turkey, thank you so much. It's okay. Now add extra information. Istanbul, open two brackets, previously called Constantinople, and then continue. Number 3. Here, please be careful that I need the two commas only. The two commas. Okay, that's the parenthesis what I want. The South Pole, what is the South Pole? The southmost point on Earth. I'll take it and put it here. And then I will complete. Is on the continent of Antarctica. If you will delete this extra information, the meaning is okay, the sentence is fine. The South Pole is on the continent of Antarctica. Add extra information, you will take this phrase and put it in the middle, between the two commas. Number 4, the camel or dormitory, okay? The camel or the dormitory is well adapted for the desert. So that's or dormitory, it is only an extra information to tell you what is a camel, to define the camel, to give another name of a camel. Cook the onions. Now look at that one because it is important and it has two, not only one. The first one you will use two dashes and the second one you will use two brackets. Cook the onions. How? Tell me. Gently. Until they are soft, not brown. I'm just giving you extra information, extra explanation to tell you how to cook the onions. So cook the onions until they are soft. It's fine. Can you elaborate? I will. Cook the onions gently until they are soft, not brown. If you will delete gently or not brown, the meaning is okay and the sentence is just fine. That's the idea of parentheses or using brackets to add extra information, extra explanation, okay, or extra opinion or afterthought. We'll move now to colons. Colons are those two dots over each other. What is colon? Colon is used to introduce something important in a sentence. In this book, they provided 3 usage for colon, but remember, in the past papers or in the exam, you can add another 2, okay, to relate to uh, related phrases to each other, or one phrase explain the other. I will repeat. It can be used for introducing a list. I have a list and I want to introduce it, so I will put a colon. To introduce a speech, somebody is talking, and then you will put the name of the character, put a colon, and put the dialogue or the direct speech of him without putting inverted commas. And that's especially in drama script or in plays. To emphasize a part of a sentence, you have something important and you want to highlight on, so it is okay to put colon and then write it. The other usage is to relate, to link two related phrases to each other, or one phrase explain the other. Examples: colon is used to introduce a list. I have an example. If I had to go on a long journey, I would take what? Okay, I will introduce the list. I have to put a colon, and then I will put the items: a blanket, a map, and a flashlight. Remember, this comma is Oxford comma. It's okay to put it in British uh, Oxford, and it is okay to delete it or to omit it in Cambridge English. Number 2, to introduce a speech. Example, I will put the name of the character Patty, and then I will put a semicolon in order to introduce the speech. What's wrong with my book? Question mark. Remember, whenever you have the semicolon, or excuse me, whenever you have a colon, you don't have inverted commas. No inverted commas. No set Patty. No reply Joe. You will just put the name of the character, the speech, the speaker, and then start writing. And as for the capital letter, kindly please remember the capital letter all the time comes after a full stop, or in the beginning of a sentence, or in a proper noun. Okay? So remember, this colon is like the comma. After the comma, or after a semicolon, or after a colon, you will put a small letter, a lowercase. However, if you are starting a new sentence, if you are writing a proper noun, it is okay to use capital letter. So here we have a new speaker, new line, new sentence. What's wrong with my book? I capitalized the W. Joe said something new in a new line from a new speaker. A new sentence, I will capitalize the F. For a start, it's completely empty. The last one is to emphasize something. You want to stress on something. You want to focus on something. You are highlighting something. I did not think I would be allowed to take my favorite clothes. Okay? What are your favorite clothes? A blue cardigan and a striped headscarf. I don't have a list here. I am emphasizing or highlighting my favorite clothes. This example, in particular, I'm talking about to relate or to link two related phrases to each other. That was what I talked about. So to emphasize something or to link two related ideas or two related phrases to each other, one is in the right, the other is in the left, or the second sentence or second phrase explains the first one. By the way, the colon is so close to the semicolon. If you understand the colon, you will understand the semicolon. Remember, please, a colon is used before introducing something important. Before, not after. Like a list or a speech, and it is not followed by capital letter unless it begins with a proper noun or a new sentence. That's very important. Okay, remember, the capital letter is only after a full stop or in the new line, in a new sentence, or if it was a proper noun or a proper adjective. Quantifiers, the word quant, it is to count. Okay? Quantifiers, they are words that show how much or how many, if you wish to say, without saying exactly the number. So quantifiers are words that help me to describe how much for uncountable or how many for countable. Examples: all, most, many, few, some, enough, each, every, both, none. How do I use them? I have now to separate two categories. The first one is countable, the other one is uncountable. Countable nouns, they are things you can count. You can add s to them. Like apples, children, books. Use plural verbs with quantifier like many, few, both. So don't put the s plural. Excuse me, don't put the s singular. All the time use a plural verb, okay, with a quantifier that modifies the countable. So I would say many apples. That's countable. Few people. That's countable. Both books. That's countable. Many dogs are playing in the park. Dogs is a countable word. It has s. I will use a quantifier to modify the countable nouns like many. I can say few dogs are playing in the park, and I can say both dogs, I'm talking about two, are playing in the park. On the other hand, the uncountable nouns, things you cannot count easily, focus on the word easily, because somebody would tell me, for example, I can count all the salt in the world. I can count all the sand in the world. Okay, mister, you can't count easily. Okay, like water and sand, salt, money. You will use singular verbs with the quantifiers like less, enough, and no. You are to use a singular verb, a verb which has s singular. Okay? Example, there is less sugar in my tea today. Sugar is uncountable. I will use less with the uncountable. And of course, remember, you are going to use a singular verb to make a subject-verb agreement. There is little sugar in my tea today. There is enough sugar in my tea today. There is no sugar in my tea today. All of these are correct. Something very important I want to draw to your attention to, I spoke about it before, the word water, the word sugar, the word meat. In general, it is uncountable, but in a specific or in sometimes a special, I can add s to it, so it would become waters, meats, salts, sugars. When? Exactly when I have many types of water. So I have salt water, I have fresh water, I have river water, I have ice water, I have snow water, I have lake water, I have soap water, and so on. When I have more than one type of water, it is okay to say waters because I have many materials. Sugars, for example, when you are studying science, you have simple sugars, you have compound sugars, you have complex sugars, you have brown sugar, you have white sugar. So all of these are sugars because you are having or you have different types of sugar. So that's fine to say waters or sugars here. But when you have one type of water, I don't care about the sum, the amount. It will still singular and it will still uncountable. Practice on quantifiers. Choose the correct verb to match the quantifier. Neither of the dogs is or are allowed. I will choose is. Why? Although dogs is countable, and I have this as plural, but I'm not talking about dogs. I'm talking about neither. So neither is the subject. Neither of the dogs. So I'm talking about every and each dog. Okay? No one of them. I will use it like what? Singular. So neither of the dogs is allowed inside. If I want to put all of the dogs are, okay, allowed inside. So remember, the subject is neither, either, all, few, less, and so. Be careful to this thing. Number 2. Few of the students. Is it goes or go? I have students. It is plural. And the few is countable. So, few of students go home on the bus. Plural and countable. Now, 3. Less salt. Salt is uncountable. And I will use uncountable quantifier with it. So, less salt is used in cooking these days. Is singular. Most of trees is countable. Plural, it has S, and I have most. Okay? I'm talking about many. Most of the trees have leaves that fall off in the water or in the winter. So have, countable, and the plural. Number 5. No water. Water is uncountable, and no, I'm negating. Nothing. So it is singular. No water was flowing in the river. Singular was. Another one, another example, another task. Choose a suitable quantifier to complete these sentences and be careful to what? To the subject-verb agreement. When they will say there are people, people is countable, there are in the park than last week. I would say there are fewer people in the park than. Why fewer? Few alone, it is countable. I have people. And I put ER because it is comparison than. So there are fewer people in the park. There are more people in the park. It's correct again. So I need something countable and comparison or comparative. 2. I put sugar. Sugar is countable than usual in my tea this morning. So I put less sugar than usual. Okay? I put much sugar than usual. 3. Learners has to complete the exercise before leaving. Each learner has to complete the exercise before leaving. I'm talking about every and each one, and I use learner singular and I put each with it. If I put all, I have to say all learners have. Every learner, although every is not quantifier, okay, but I'm just trying to focus on what? On the subject agreement. Number 4. Boys decided to go swimming. All boys decided to go swimming. Both boys decided to go swimming. Many boys decided to go swimming. All of these are correct because you are using plural, countable, and you have to use both, many, all. Time has been allowed to complete the test. Enough. All. Let's say enough time has. Time is uncountable. Enough is a singular. So enough time has been allowed to complete the test. I can say little time has been allowed to complete the test. It is okay as well. Summarize, plenary, revise, summary of a key point or of key points, punctuation and the grammar. Remember the parentheses, they add extra information, add extra explanation without it changing the sentence's meaning. You can add afterthought or extra opinion. Colons, like semicolon, they introduce a list, okay? Speech, emphasize in the sentence, and they link two related phrases to each other. Quantifiers are words to modify nouns in order to show how much or how many according to countability or uncountability, and help to decide if the verb is singular or plural because they are very important in subject-verb agreement. Tips to remember. In brackets, please don't use too many as you are organizing your text and you are replacing usage some of punctuation. So please don't overuse them in order to keep them for extra information, and try to remember that whenever you are putting them under or put them under around the extra information. Okay? Never put them around the essential information or only extra information. Remember please that colons are being used to introduce important lists or important speech. You cannot exceed using them, and you have to use them only in the important or urgent use. Quantifiers, be careful to them, especially when you are uh, differentiating between countable and uncountable nouns. And all the time remember, match them with the right verb, as the uncountable goes with singular verb while the countable goes with the plural verb. As for homework, okay, that's 4.3, learner's book. We explained it. We answered the exercises. As a homework, 4.3 useful punctuation and the grammar tips can be found in the workbook. You have the language focus. You will read it, you will understand it, and then you will apply using 3 to 4 exercises. 1 for focus. You will remember, you will revise, you will recall the use of the parentheses. And number 2, you will apply, you will practice how to use the parentheses. And then you have a challenge. You will create, you will analyze, you will rewrite something about the quantifiers. Okay, choose the best one and put the correct one, or the most suitable one if you wish to say. I'd like to thank you so much for having me today. This is Mr. Abdul Wahab Jamal saluting all of you, and have a good night. See you inshallah in 4.4 next session. Begin planning a longer story.